Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Thanks for spending time on a Wednesday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Loaded up today. Plenty of thoughts on the new and improved, I'm air quoting, schedule for 2022 for Nebraska football. Husker basketball teases you just enough, and then there's still 4 minutes to finish. On that, we'll check in with A.D. Markowski, the pride of Ord, Husker basketball standout. Mike Schuhart this hour to talk some golf, and he'll weigh in on some Big Red topics. Mike Babcock from Hail Varsity in about 20 minutes, and then also we'll check in with former coach Rick Kaczenski. A Jock Doc will wind us up. Will Wilson back in today. Chris Schmidt and can dial us up at 466-3776, 466-3776, 1-800-825-5865. At Will on the Radio is where you find Will on Twitter, at Schmidt_radio. Chris Schmidt, that's me. Can email as always, chris@hailvarsity.com. So let's dive into schedule before we hear from the mayor and Nebraska's 13th consecutive Power 5 loss. Looked better, but still looked the same in some instances. Will, have you got the ink pen out? Are you ready to declare an amazing start in season for Nebraska 2022? We don't know who the running backs coach is. We don't know who's going to stay after spring ball. We don't know who's going to be healthy through all of spring ball. And Ireland awaits, my friend.
Yeah,
you're ready. I know you're fired up, man. You're ready to go ink with your 11-2 prediction. Correct?
Not as much as ESPN is, as we touched on the other day.
Yep, the Action Network and ESPN both loving Nebraska as part of their way too early top 25.
I mean, it's hard to not get excited about what's been happening in the portal. I mean, you got a nice quarterback, which a lot of teams would have liked to have.
Another running back out of the portal.
Another running back.
You've shifted things up with some of your hires. And it was funny. You went to the basketball game last night with Coach Smith. And big thanks to him and the Single Barrel for having us out for a Real Red tip-off. And the guys behind us in the section, I mean, and I love them. They're probably my age or a little younger, probably a little bit younger, probably mid-30s.
Okay.
And it's during a timeout, and Illinois has put a run together to cut into Nebraska's lead that was at one point 16-4, and they're like the two old guys from the Muppets, right in the balcony.
Yep.
And they're just kind of, well, I'm trying not to buy into this damn Kool-Aid and hype. They switched from basketball to, and I just love, it wasn't purposely eavesdropping, but I couldn't ignore it. And they're like, well, quarterback looks pretty good. They got a stud running back out of A&M. Hey, Chenander's defense over-delivered last year. Maybe they'll be really... So they're talking themselves into why it can be okay, and that's fine, why it's going to be okay in 2022. They immediately go from, well, that was a stupid shot by Verge, to... It's like the opening scene from Major League. Well, these guys aren't, halfway through the movie, from the opening scene of, well, this team's really crappy, to, hey, they're not too bad. Or they're around 500 at the All-Star break.
It's a roller coaster.
It was so funny to hear, Nebraska fans just in the backdrop, just normal water cooler chat about, we'll see. But to me, it always comes down to this in the Big Ten. You hear Coach McBride hammer it a lot because he knows it. You hear Coach Frost talk about it. You've got one of the best in strength and conditioning in Duval down there for Nebraska, and how Nebraska attacks their strength and conditioning. It's going on right now, winter conditioning. That'll tell the tale, right? Because it always comes down to me, how's your depth, how's your development, and can you Can you be somewhat fresh? No, but can you will yourself to a tough finish in November in the Big Ten? Because it is a meat grinder week in, week out, and the way things are stacked for you, specifically Nebraska, and a lot of other teams, I mean, it is last man standing. That is, to me, all about what kind of depth you can develop, how's your strength and conditioning, and then, honestly, your crossovers. Who are you drawing? What's your crossover look like? How are your games stacked? And right now, you have a slew of 8-4, 9-4 football teams coming into not the same roster, but you have a 9-4 Purdue, you have a 9-4 Minnesota, you have an 8-4 Wisconsin, right? You have Iowa that finished with 10 wins. I mean, that's a people make fun of the Western Division, but Nebraska and Illinois and Northwestern were the ones that weren't that good, and Illinois finished pretty strong. I mean, they were right on the cusp of a bowl win. Not to mention 2 top 25 wins, one at Penn State by the pig farmer. But to me, I look at the schedule and how it was redistributed. I'm disappointed that Nebraska is getting Michigan moved back. I know you had to flip-flop things, and I know that you needed to go to Purdue because you owed them one in West Lafayette. And I also know that it was time for Wisconsin to come back to Lincoln. Totally get it. You needed to do that.
Which is a good draw.
That.
Yeah.
Right, but man, originally Nebraska was supposed to play Michigan the 15th of October. We were going to be in Ann Arbor on a glorious fall day, but now that has shifted to November 12th. So you get Michigan in cold, throwback Big Ten weather. I get it. How's Nebraska's finish? Stop me if you've heard this before. And really, you get your bye week after Purdue. You get Illinois and Lincoln. Not easy, just because of how physical they are. Back to strength and conditioning and depth, and how are you on the lines of scrimmage. You host Minnesota. Minnesota's won a few in a row against you.
Yep.
You're at Michigan. You host Wisconsin. You travel to Iowa on Black Friday. We'll be there for that roadshow. I'm calling it now. But that's your finish. 5-7. 9-4, college football playoff semifinalist, 8-4, West Division champs, 10-3. That's your finish for Nebraska. Your crossovers, no one's doable right now for Nebraska, but in Ohio State, Michigan, you do get Indiana at home, and they've got to have a bounce-back season, and then Rutgers. You want to know who really got hammered? Rutgers. Rutgers, this is their schedule. They're in the East, but then their crossovers are at Iowa, at Nebraska, and Minnesota. Excuse me. They host Iowa, they host Nebraska, and then they're at Minnesota. On top of Penn State, Michigan State.
So we go to Rutgers.
Yes, in October. You have two games in October. I love how beautiful Lincoln is in October. Think about this October. But you start October and you end October in Lincoln. You start out, as of we talk right now, in Ireland against Northwestern. You end with Oklahoma as part of your non-conference. You have a bye before you hook up with Indiana in Lincoln. And then the middle of October, you're at Rutgers, you're at Purdue, bye week, and then that death march of Indiana, make that Illinois, Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa.
Huh.
So you got to get to 6.
The last time we played Rutgers was at Rutgers, right?
Yeah. It was the
Dedrick and
it was the first half, second half tale of Adrian.
Oh my Lord!
With turnovers, and
Isn't
then
that the way to put
wow.
it? Yeah. Well, interesting. We can go there back to back. Yeah, interesting.
So we have this. Iowa, their close is Wisconsin at Minnesota, Nebraska. Very difficult close for Iowa. Their crossovers, mentioned Rutgers, but they host Michigan.
Okay.
Iowa also is at Ohio State this year.
It's about time.
Wisconsin, their close at Iowa, at Nebraska, Minnesota. Their crossover at Maryland, at Ohio State. And so Ohio State is drawing two of the West halves, but they host. And then Minnesota, they're closed. Northwestern, Iowa at Wisconsin on that Black Friday. And the Minnesota crossover is Sparty and at Penn State. They're on the road for both of those. So crossover-wise, Nebraska's, I'm going to say now, has the advantage. You can't ever put anything in ink with Nebraska and just how the things have gone in the Big Ten. You were 1-8 this year.
Do you think? Sorry to interrupt, Schmidt. Do you think anything happens with the North Dakota game? Do you think any changes are made to that at all?
No, because you need a win.
Okay.
And I know there's no bye, and you scheduled something last year in week 2 because, well, technically. You don't want to burn one of your buys that early. You just don't. Now, the tricky part will be getting your body clock readjusted after Ireland.
Yeah.
Now, if things don't get better, you'll need to look at still playing that in Ireland. I would move it to Chicago and see if Wrigley or Soldier Field's available. If Northwestern would want to give up a home game in their high school gym. Or football field, forgive me. So schedule's out. They flip-flop. You get to host Wisconsin, which is good. You go to Purdue. Things are back on track with the home and away setup. And your game was moved, and you traded Purdue mid-October for Michigan in November. Tough close for Nebraska, but you got to be used to it by now.
Well, I think Purdue's. I always thought Minnesota was like the king trap game of the Big Ten. Purdue's kind of turning into that for me. So I would love to have Purdue here, but I'd rather have Wisconsin here than Purdue.
Let's hear from Fred Hoiberg. Nebraska falls by 10 to a really good Illinois team, a team that cracked the top 25. Good for Nebraska. They came out on fire. They were up 12. Hit quite a bit of their first three-point attempts, 4 for 4 to start out. But as always, it comes down to this team's makeup when it comes to executing and doing the little things physically, that is rebounding and boxing out, and then making some plays on offense. Fred, after last night's game, on Nebraska's lack of finish.
Bryce hits the 2 free throws under the 4-minute media timeout, and they come out and get 2 offensive rebounds in that first possession, had a good stop, and they we don't hit their big guy, and he goes in and gets 2 chances at it and opens up a lead for them. We came down, and I believe that was a shot that got blocked. Ran a place for Bryce to get downhill to his right hand. I thought he had good attack, and they made a hell of a play at the rim on it. Came back, their roller got behind us and gets the dunk to put them up 4. I think the next possession was the free throws. Then we came down and didn't execute the play that was called on the free throw line. We had 3 guys in the right spot, 2 guys not. And it's obviously a horrible time. In crunch time to not go down and execute, and we have a poor possession. And, we felt we had a good play called that could have got us to the rim, maybe got us to the free throw line, and, we didn't execute it. They came down and hit a couple threes there at the end. I thought we guarded the 3 all night long extremely well. When you play a team like this with Kofi, with 4 shooters around him, you can't take away everything. The decision was made to play mostly one-on-one in the post, try to dig in there when we could. I thought we executed some good fouls there at the end to put him on the free throw line, but they hit the big ones there at the end of the game when it mattered most. Our effort was phenomenal. I thought we fought them all the way to the end. Just got to execute better down the stretch.
That is fair to say, and Nebraska still has the drought, 7.5-minute drought in the first half. You're up 12. Illinois then goes on a 25-4 run. You finish with an 11-0 spurt yourself as Nebraska 34-31 at the half. But honestly, after Bryce hits a couple of free throws, after you battled back from being down, Illinois does what they do. And Frazier was incredible, really directed that offense. You had Kofi in foul trouble, so he wasn't on the floor. That honestly kind of opened things up for Illinois. Him not being in the paint there offensively. Nebraska really did a good job. Derek Walker's awesome. Derek Walker needs the rest of his teammates, not named Trey McGowan's, to follow his lead and start being unselfish. It was better, but you still have empty possessions. And listen, Nebraska didn't have a ton of turnovers, But, Will, the turnovers, something as simple as an entry pass to Eduardo from Verge,
I know what
where
you're
it's a
talking
turnover.
about. Yep.
I mean, just stupid passes. Fred had to play dodgeball last night a couple of times on the sideline where guys picked their dribble up, and you still have over dribbling. You didn't have a good night last night from Kobe. He wasn't really on fire, and he had some turnover issues. I thought Kisei shot well early, and I thought it was the right call to get his ass out of the game the final 5 minutes defensively, because he's just a nightmare defensively. Yeah. He's just overmatched. But the problem is you got Walker putting a body on somebody, and you got two guards and a forward watching. I do like Wilcher. I hope Wilcher's a guy that gets more and more time because I like his defensive effort. He's a guy that is either hot or cold from three-point land, but I think he's a guy that can help you win. You really need Trey to come back and get this thing going. Bryce, man, had some highlight moments. Big-time wow dunks. Struggled from his mid-range a little bit, but I thought he played a decent game. But you got to get both ends of the floor from him. That's still a work in progress. We'll spend some time here on Nebraska Items here with Mike Babcock next on Hail Varsity. Hello, listener. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to let you know about a special deal just for listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast. We're offering $10 off the annual subscription price of $29.99. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And we're back
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio lesson?
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Thanks for your time. Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Thoughts from Coach Kaczenski in 1 hour. Eddie Markowski weighs in on Big Red basketball. We welcome in historian, author, Hall of Famer, and Husker Insider with Hail Varsity, Mike Babcock at MD Babs on Twitter. Babbers, did you go last night, or were you glued to the edge of your couch with Big Red basketball?
I was glued to the edge of my recliner, and I really thought, I told my wife when the game started, I really thought Nebraska might win the game. I don't know what I based that on, but I just had a sense that the Huskers would. And for a time there, it appears as if they might pull it out. I mean, it was only they were tied with about 4 minutes to go, and then things kind of fell apart a little bit. But by the same token, you got to credit Illinois as a good team. There's no question about that. And to do what it did, and with Coburn on the bench, I thought that was impressive. So I'm more inclined to give Illinois credit and to jump on Nebraska too much. But it is concerning to me. It didn't seem like there was a big crowd there.
There wasn't. I mean, it was, and it's funny to look at just the last, has it been 10 years? I think it has been 10 years of PBA.
Yeah.
So 10 years, and, you have the opener against Miami, and Tommy Lee's out there banging away on whatever his synthesizer was, right? And now you fast forward, and that place has always been kind of a happening, right? You've always had folks arrive right at tip-off time from the rail yard, and they're ready to scream their head off. And you remember moments like No Sit Sunday or some of the other big wins you had during the Miles era, and then the excitement with Fred. And I think the excitement it's been drained because you've had a team of guys that have transferred in, and you don't have, it's not that everyone's left, but you've not had that much carryover or continuity. I mean, it's been a new roster every year, it feels like, or at least some key pieces. not in every instance, but a lot of the pieces. And then you've had some blowout losses this year where you question the team's effort. You can get blown out, but it's not happened that often where you question the effort. That's happened for the first time multiple times this year. So you're going to have a thinner crowd, Babbers, just because Nebraska fans are tired of what they're seeing. I mean, there's boos that happen when you have a bad possession, and you can hear some groans or some frustration, but there's been flat out boos because you see the same movie over and over again on the basketball court with some bad shots a lot of times.
Oh yeah, and I'm not criticizing the fans in any way.
No, I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying it was light. You're right on. It was light last night.
And it's just a sad kind of state of affairs from that standpoint, because the fans are a big part of what makes Nebraska athletics special. Mm-hmm. And the women's basketball game the other day drew better than 8,000.
Yeah, it was rocking.
Yeah, I mean the enthusiasm there, and so I just would like to see the enthusiasm, and I know that that's going to have to come with improvement of play, consistency of play, because we've seen spurts, but it never seems to hold together. It just all of a sudden there's a stretch there where things don't go exactly right. And again, I want to credit Illinois, because Illinois did some good things down the stretch, even though Nebraska gave it everything it had.
Well, Frazier's that difference maker. He's that dude, and he took over, and he had a couple of threes. He made a couple of plays, and that is eventually what you want to see Bryce McGowan's turn into, or Verge, or when you get Trey McGowan's back. The one shining light has been Walker this year. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah, no question about that. I thought great credit to him, what he did there when he and Coburn were both on the floor. I thought he held his own as much as you can for a talent like Coburn. And, as you pointed out, and we said, Coburn's on the bench at the end because he got 4 fouls. And he did get a double-double, but he was having some concerns trying to stay with Derek on some of the things that Derek did.
Mike Babcock's with us a few minutes, Hail Varsity Radio. Mike, how big is the Purdue ball game? I mean, is it kind of one of those tipping point? I know they're top 10. I know they're 2, 3 seed, 1 seed. I mean, just depending on the week of the crop report. But from a competitiveness and an effort standpoint, it's got to be there on the road Friday, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's on the road, and it's a really good team. But you've got to see the consistent effort, and you just got to avoid, if you can, avoid those things, the mistakes that are not forced by the other team, but to some degree that you make yourself. And attention to detail, which is kind of what Hoiberg talked about. I think you have to have good effort from that standpoint. I don't know that you're going to go to West Lafayette and win the game against a team like that. And, that's the other thing is Nebraska's early schedule in the conference is brutal. And, I know the announcers on TV are like, the Big Ten is just rugged all the way around. But Nebraska's had a pretty good run here against some teams that are probably going to be in the NCAA tournament and have some success there. And so you got to get to that point in the schedule where you're playing hard and you're not getting discouraged, which that's a concern also, is that when you do go through these stretches like this, it's easy to get down, I'm sure, and you've got to avoid that. So you want to see those things at Purdue, but play hard. And again, it's difficult sometimes when things are going the way they are, but I expect that Nebraska will. I think Hoiberg, with each game, maybe is doing a little bit better job of getting this message across. And I think guys are responding, and when they don't, I think they see the bench for a bit.
Yeah, and better late than never when it comes to that accountability. Mike, let's flip gears and talk Nebraska football. Schedule today came out, a few tweaks with Wisconsin coming to Lincoln, Nebraska going to Purdue, and then you flip-flop when Purdue was scheduled to play Nebraska and Michigan. So you go from a mid-October Michigan scheduling to part of that death march finish.
Yeah.
What do you see when you see this schedule with Nebraska?
Yeah, death march. That's a good way to put it. So when I saw that, I thought, oh, well, maybe they're getting rid of Michigan. They're not going to have Michigan on the schedule either. But
No,
there it is. And now we moved them back to the end of the schedule, so it's a tough run there. But the same thing I said about last season. I guess this team, you just have to approach it the way it is. And your first concern is to have success against Northwestern and Dublin, and then go from there. And there was some talk about the second game getting maybe changed somehow, but you got a couple of non-conference games there where you're going to win, kind of scheduled wins, and then you got Oklahoma coming into Memorial Stadium. So again, you can't be looking ahead to that Oklahoma game, but you got to play it one game at a time and deal with the schedule as it's presented to you. And if you can do that, that was the tough thing. It was losing to Illinois in the opener last year. Gosh, that just changes the dynamic, I think. A winnable game and you don't win. And now I think you've got the same kind of a situation setting up here as you've got a winnable game to start the season off. Focus on that. Don't worry about how the schedule shakes out at the end, because you need to get into a position where you're playing for something at that point rather than just trying to pick up the pieces and put it together for next season.
There's no off weeks in the Big Ten, and Babbers, with the way the West finished out this 2021 season with the number of 8 and 9 win teams, could you make an argument it was one of the tougher divisions in Power 5?
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I think it was interesting. As crazy as it sounds, when they were looking for a couple of teams to play in bowl games because of COVID, had there been an opportunity, Nebraska wouldn't have been, wasn't reasonable. But I could have also almost seen Nebraska being in a bowl game from the standpoint of this team plays hard against good teams and comes up just short. I mean, that would have been an interesting bowl game, I think. A Nebraska team that's 3-9 and going against a bowl eligible team, see what happened. I'm not so sure that there are too many teams at that level. You're not going to be playing in a major bowl, but playing in one of those bowls, if Nebraska were in it, I'm not sure that Nebraska would win the game. Just because they showed that the Huskers showed that throughout the season, and I know that's a crazy thing to say, but to me that would have been interesting if Nebraska would have played in a bowl game because of the way the season went. The record was not reflective of the kind of team Nebraska had. I stand by that. I really believe that, and it's unfortunate that it had to turn out that way. You didn't get it. You couldn't flip maybe 3 of those things and become bowl eligible, but certainly Nebraska could have played in a bowl and probably been successful at a lower level.
Mike, a way too early favorite for the West. I kind of thought Purdue because of what they had coming back, and I know what they didn't have in the bowl game, and it kind of surprised me and made a case for maybe a favorite. I know Iowa's got to reload a little bit, and then Wisconsin's Wisconsin. They got to get better consistency at quarterback play, but they were still there at 8 wins. And then there's Minnesota at 9-4. Who do you like? And I know Illinois was just a game away from being bowl eligible as well, and Northwestern is good at rebounding from tough years. And then there's Nebraska that was right there in every ball game as well. So I guess I'm asking you, good luck picking the West.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You can flip a coin, I think, for some. So Purdue, obviously, that's a big break now because they get Nebraska at home. Mm-hmm. They don't have to come to Memorial Stadium. Is that right?
Yep, that's true.
So there you go. So but no, I wouldn't deign to pick a favorite. I think it's going to be a real scramble. Now, do you think Nebraska can make that big of a turnaround to compete in the division? That's the question. Mm-hmm. I guess. I mean, again, this season was not what it seemed, because of of how hard Nebraska played and the opportunity it had to get there. But I don't know if you can turn it around that dramatically in one season. But by the same token, I don't know how you can have a record like Nebraska had that dramatically the way the Huskers played.
Mike Babcock with us. Babbers, we'll do this again next week. Thanks for the time, bud.
Hey, thanks for having me. Be safe.
Hello, listener. This is Brandon Vogel, managing editor of Hail Varsity, and I wanted to let you know about a special deal just for listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast. We're offering $10 off the annual subscription price of $29.99. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce, 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for your time with Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Andy Markowski coming up. Mike Schuhart, Wilderness Ridge Golf in a moment. Let's squeeze Paul in here real quick. Paul, thanks for listening. Go ahead.
I don't want to come off as a Husker hater. I'm the exact opposite. I'm the biggest supporter you ever met. 2 questions, though, and they're going to sound negative. Do we expect much change in our special teams this coming year when you consider that our special team coordinator was the advisor for special teams before he was elevated?
Yeah, I expect change because of Bill Bush's track record with special teams, for one. For two, he can actually be on the field and coach it. It's one thing to analyze it and suggest some tweaks here and there, but he'll be hands-on with it. And to be honest with you, I think Coach Dawson did what he could, right? It comes down to some guys executing as well. I think you're going to have a better choice of participants. I think you're going to have a better field goal kicker. You're going to have a better punter, and you're going to have drilled detail when it comes to lining up. Iowa's like, okay, let's dive in and take a look at where Nebraska's weakness is on punt block, or I should say punt protection. They found a spot. They blocked it. There goes momentum. Here comes Iowa coming from behind. I don't think you're going to have that happen with Bill Bush because that is his gig.
And that's hopefully from your mouth to God's ear. Second point, and I hate being a negative person on this stuff, do we expect that our defensive coordinator can get it truly done? I mean, I know that there's been improvement on the defense, but how many times when we needed a stop this last season, when we should have won at least, 3 or 4 games, but we never got the final stop on anybody?
You have fair points, Paul, with especially the last 3 games. What Nebraska give up on the ground? Too much, right? I mean, you had some big-time rushing yardage by Goodson. You had Allen go for 2 bills. It didn't look like the same Nebraska defense. I rewind to that second half against Michigan, where that was as fine of a half of a defensive performance as you've seen in a while.
Yeah.
You had the offense put up more points last year towards the end of the year, okay? But, man, they weren't doing it early. I think it was cumulative, to be frank with you. And, yes, you got to be better, but the hope is to have the offense helping out the defense. You haven't had complimentary football here for quite a few years. You have some of that mileage taken off your back if you're Nebraska football defensively by an offense that's ready to go and can put up some points. You should win a ton of ball games allowing 22 points a game defensively.
Sure. And I'm just looking at Chenander and just thinking, man, the Scots' biggest knock from pundits and everyone left and right was that he brought a staff that was good enough for Central Florida but was not ready for Power 5 Big Ten games, Big Ten opponents. And I'm praying that he succeeds. I'm praying for our Huskers. I'm just worried that we need to get some more Big Ten coaching.
Well, I think Chenander, he's coached at Power 5 before. I mean, he's been at Oregon. He's been in the NFL. So, I mean, Chenander's developed the defense that was a shadow of what they've become. Are they 09? No. Are they 88 good? No, but they were good enough. Paul, thanks for the phone call, bud.
Thank you, guys.
Good stuff from Paul, man. Love those questions. Can email as well, chris@halevarsity.com. We're going to squeeze Shuey in here in a little bit and get his take on some Big Red and then also some PGA stuff. Because I hope somebody's golfing today at 57 degrees, January 12th. That's kind of my dream, that somebody's out there or thinking about going out there or just finishing up a round. That'd be awesome. I was asked, hey, can you go swing the clubs today? Sadly, no. I couldn't golf. So we'll see if Shuey's available from Wilderness Ridge. We're a couple of minutes tardy with him, but wanted to get Paul's phone call at number to dial in at 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Can email chris@halevarsity.com and find us on Twitter at Will on the Radio for Will Wilson, at Schmidt_radio is where you find me, Chris Schmidt. Coming up, we're about 15 minutes away from Andy Markowski. Get Andy's take on Big Red basketball, and then we'll spend some time with Kaz. He'll sound off on special teams. We'll get his take on the Bill Bush edition, and then a Jock Doc. So, a couple of fair questions there by Paul. What do you think? Will, I'll throw it to you. I gave my 2 cents. I think they'll be good enough defensively. Are they going to be great? It comes down to finding the pass rusher. Yeah. They got to replace a lot of the back end, and you've got to have some guys that got their feet wet with more of a role responsibility. They've got to take that next step on the interior. You lost a lot of super seniors that were great football players, Cam Taylor, Britt, and JoJo specifically, and a heart and soul guy in Stilley. When it comes to the special teams, no one's going to jack around with Bill Bush. He's going to make it happen, and he'll have the right personnel in place. And they'll be able to execute. Yeah, that's my... I don't really doubt on that, to be honest with you. It was an afterthought. Quite frankly, it's talked about in appropriate terms about special teams is important. Well, now you put your money where your mouth is about the importance of special teams because you've got someone dedicated to it that's done well with it.
Yeah, and I get Paul's point. He's saying we better see a change, because if we don't, then why did we do it?
We've just kind of rattled off the schedule.
Yeah.
Special teams are going to be your difference along with your defense and along with an offense that isn't way hit or miss and very sporadic with a big play, but you're held to 3 or you don't even make the 3.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all hand in hand here.
And talking about the defense, it's weird. There was a group of people who thought the defense was great. There was a group of people that thought, like you said, they were just good enough. I was in the boat that I thought they were better than, just enough.
Best you've seen in a long time.
Yeah, and I mean, we still got talent on that side of the ball. We got guys that have been in the program for 3 years now, which I like. You're getting guys in the room and studying things. So I don't know, Schmidt. I about called you my other co-host.
No.
Huxley's
golfing. It's okay.
By the way, I did see people golfing yesterday. You mentioned that. I did see people golfing yesterday, and you didn't only miss golf. We're also missing the company party.
No, I know. I mean, and you know what? The company party's at a great spot in Lincoln. 4 o'clock is this Shuey. All right, let's squeeze Shuey on. Let's hold him. Shuey, I've got a minute, and we're going to roll you over to after the 50 break, okay, so we get time with you?
Love it.
All right. Okay, we just had Paul call in. Do you expect a change in special teams? And will the defense be as good next year? We'll pose those questions to you. That's a couple of talking points this segment here. About 30 seconds. What do you think?
Me?
Yeah, you, Big Cat.
Oh, man. How can it be worse?
So
that's what I think.
So
There's no way it could be worse.
By default, she was like, "Yes, I'm in." All right, I'm going to put you on. I'm going to put you on hold because I don't want to punch you. Be ready to rock. We'll talk some PGA. We'll talk some football. We'll talk some hoops. Mike Schuart, Wilderness Ridge on deck. Shuey, hang on, and heckle that par putt that's being attempted right now at Wilderness.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, Mike Schuhart, Wilderness Ridge Golf, joining us here, a rapid-fire segment with Shuey. Shuey, how many folks golfing out at Wilderness today?
There was a lot that wanted to. Our course wasn't quite ready to open up yet, so there was a lot of unhappy people. 58 degrees this time of the year. I wouldn't want to be out there.
Well, you know what? I would have lost a ball or two, but, man, at least we're getting that type of weather. So what did last night do for you as a avid Nebraska basketball fan? You feel any better, or are you still pissed?
What?
Husker basketball.
I just want to know how Fred Hoiberg doesn't resign.
Okay.
That's the most disgusting display of basketball I've ever seen.
Even last night?
It was terrible. So they're shooting layups, and we're shooting half-court three-pointers.
They went as many
You're not going to win very many games like that. Because that's what happened. They made them in the beginning, and then they couldn't make anything in the end, and it's like, it was bad. It's bad basketball.
All right, moving on, Chewy. You're like, okay, so
6-50.
No, I know.
He's 6-50. How do you justify that?
You can't. There's no
way.
There's no way to justify.
If I did that at my job, I'd be gone.
We'll see if things turn around against Purdue, right? Take the points. Joking.
Yeah.
Chewy, if you could fix one thing at Memorial Stadium, what would it be? You had a fan survey out for Husker football fans, a survey being distributed to all the donors.
Make the seats bigger.
Okay. So bigger seats, says Shuey. That's very fair. How about a party deck?
That'd be all right.
Yeah. Okay.
It better be a big one.
No, it's that would work. So PGA thought Shuey, who takes a step forward this 2022 tour? Who are you looking at? Who's the name?
I think John Rahm will continue doing what he kind of finished off with last year, and he obviously showed that the first tournament out. Mm-hmm. It's crazy how good these guys are. How about John Rahm breaking the 72-hole scoring record and losing by 2?
That's nuts.
That's nuts, is right. I mean, it's amazing how good these guys play, and they make golf look really easy. Not that easy.
Shuey, who takes a step back in 2022?
Jordan Spieth.
Okay.
Again. You know, I don't think he's quite there yet. You know, he's fighting some demons. You know, he got away with a lot of stuff, and it's like he's got to learn how to hit the ball better. You know, and not just survive on his putter being really good.
Chewy, what's going on at Wilderness, man? I got memberships available, and tell me about that swim bar.
They're working like crazy, man. They've had some great weather. They're working that pool over. It's going to be done. It's going to be awesome. It's been our membership director, Tammy Nagel, her phone's been ringing off the hook, so lots of memberships coming in. So super exciting stuff that's happening. So we can't wait. Our golf shop and academy has been rocking for the last month, so a lot of people using that. So a lot of neat stuff happening.
Mike Schuhart, Wilderness Ridge Golf. Go see Shuey to get fixed with your golf game, get a membership, and enjoy that swim-up bar, soon to be in operation. Shuey, we'll get it rocking a little bit longer next time. Thanks for making time today.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you. There he is, Mike Schuhart, Wilderness Ridge Golf. Maybe they'll go win one for Shuey against Purdue. Eddie Markowski's next hour, too, with Hail Varsity. Pardon the interruption, but I'd like to save you some money. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity, and I wanted to offer listeners of this podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back into it, hour two. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. I love our weekly chats with the pride of Ord, Husker standout Andy Markowski with us, and can follow him on Twitter at Markowski_Andy. Well, Andy, a tough one last night at PBA for Nebraska basketball. The men, went toe-to-toe with Illinois, but a familiar issue, and that's finishing. At least you had better effort. That's kind of a baseline for me, but they looked a lot better. What was some of your takeaways?
No, I agree. You got off to a terrific start and built a lead, and then had some things go against you in the first half. Really had a chance to maybe, pack it up and lose again, by 30 points. But they fought. They got it back to a lead at halftime. And to your point, with a couple minutes to go, the game was in question where we were making plays and answering Illinois' runs, but, just not able to, get a key rebound, get a key stop, hit a key basket, kind of the MO of this team in close games. But, there were stretches where, I thought they played better together. Give Walker credit. He really competed inside against, what is a, tremendous talent in Cockburn and inside. But, yeah, just another disappointing loss, and it doesn't get any easier. They're at Purdue, so just a brutal Big Ten slate.
Andy Markowski with us, Hail Varsity Radio. I want to get into kind of the dynamics of, a final 4 minutes. And listen, the kids on the roster have competed at a high level. Many of them have been at other programs that have won, okay? So I don't think it's an issue of guys have not, they've experienced winning, but maybe not as the guy, right? So what's the trick? What can Fred do so it's different next time? Because they've been in a lot of these ball games. I mean, they're on a tough skid against, major competition. And I think it's now at 13, straight losses against Power 5, air quote, squads. They've got some talent, but man, between communication and shot selection and the first possession Illinois had after the free throws by Bryce to tie it, we're talking 3 cracks at the rim where 3 guys, not Walker, mind you, but everyone else is watching someone else, not box out. And it's just maddening, and Fred's gotta just be sick.
Yeah, well, everybody looks at the last 2 minutes, and those plays are magnified because you can start to replay the game backwards, and those plays stand out to you. But really, this team, the margin of success with this team is small, right? I mean, they can't have a bunch of empty possessions, silly turnovers. Rebounding, as you illustrated, especially late when they had 3 tips at scoring a key basket in the game. They just got to keep going back to work to clean up all of those plays because, those are the differences of winning a close game in the Big Ten. Maybe you're up 6, late versus being tied or down 4. If you can clean up some of that stuff through the middle stretches of the game, I think our shot selection has improved, which has allowed us to get back in conversion defense and take teams out of some of their transition, which we were losing, to teams early in the season in the non-conference. So they're making progress, Chris. But to your point, kids got to step up. I mean, it's you have to want to win. You've got to will yourself to win. You've got to be in the trenches with your teammates to win. And you hope that they're there for the right reasons. But, losing is a skill, just like winning is a skill. And this group, as like the football team, I don't think they get to that point. And I think they think bad things are going to happen and they're going to lose versus, hey, I'm going to make this play to help us win. And that mindset is hard to overcome. And hopefully, they've got to win in order to make that next step to believe in themselves. And, it just doesn't, the schedule just does not get any easier. There's no give-me's in the Big Ten schedule.
Did you ever live in that neighborhood on a team where, oh, God, we're right here. I hope we don't screw up. I mean, was that ever something you had to kind of climb over in your career?
Yeah, I don't know if truly they're sitting there thinking, hey, if I don't, make a play or if I don't do this, we're going to lose the game. But it's just that will of, to your point, and going back to that rebounding analogy, like if you are all in, you are not backpedaling out of the lane when you need to get a rebound, right? I mean, you are running to go get the basketball, and those are the simple plays that, when losing really sucks and you hate to lose, you will will yourself to do things to help your team win. And I don't know if this group is, I don't know if they have a sole purpose of winning. I think they're all here for different reasons. And Fred has not been able to kind of, drive the catalyst of why you're here versus the purpose of playing for Nebraska and playing for this team. And that's not a negative. That's hard to do. It's hard to get a group of people to come together when everybody has individual goals and get them with one purpose. But when that purpose is, I'm here to help Nebraska win, and that's what you're leading with, usually good things are happening. And I don't know if this group is at that point. And sometimes those plays, a selfish shot or a selfish turnover, just those things will come back and bite you. And that's what this team has had issues with.
Few minutes here. Andy Markowski with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Andy, a thought here on the roster and how Nebraska's gone about building their roster in the Hoiberg era. And really, it goes back to before Fred as well. I mean, Nebraska's looked at the transfer market to bring in some high-profile guys kind of on a second dance, so to speak. And moving forward with Fred and his staff, I'm interested if there's tweaks and changes or if this is what he knows and how he wanted Iowa State, if he's going to continue to do it. They do go after some high school kids, so it's not all just let's go grab a transfer portal guy. But it's pretty littered right now with guys contributing aside from Bryce that are guys that are from a different program. Do you reassess that here after now a really tough third year?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's just transfers. I mean, everybody has their own DNA of why they're here and the purpose they have in being a college athlete. I think they have to reassess, the characteristics that they're recruiting. There's no doubt this team is talented. I mean, you throw them in an open gym and there are talented kids on that roster, but winning is more than just talent. Building a program is more than just taking, the next 4 or 5 star kid, that's in the transfer portal. How do you fit that together? How do you lead with that purpose? I look at Texas Tech. I mean, have you ever been to Lubbock, Texas? I mean, how does Texas Tech build a winning program, right? I mean, they just upset Baylor, the number 1 team in the country. Those kids fought every possession, tooth and nail, battled back from 14 down. And I'm not saying that we have to be Texas Tech. I'm saying it can be done. But it's hard. It's hard to recruit. It's hard to blend kids in that all have different, aspirations once they get to college. I think the transfer portal is great. But I think they have to look at finding, some pieces that are Walker-ish, right? That are unselfish, that are willing to, just really compete in their role. What do I need to do to help the team win versus what do I need to do to make myself look good? And when you have a nice blend of those different roles and people accept their role and are willing to do that to help the team win, that's how you have success. And I just don't believe that this roster is there. Can it be morphed and changed or a couple pieces added to get to that? We'll see. That's what Fred is paid to do and the coaching staff is paid to recruit. But it doesn't appear that the pieces fit together and the purpose of winning is the lead of why these kids are here. That's just my outside opinion. But I've been impressed with the Ohio State game. I've been impressed with them in the Illinois game. I think they're making a lot of strides in areas that they needed to get better at to be competitive in the Big Ten. And, I think the program's at a crossroads. We'll see who wants to be here for the right reasons, because wins are going to be hard in this league. And it's going to be easy for this group to check out if they're not in it for each other or in it to represent Nebraska and help Nebraska win.
Andy, let's spend a second here on Walker and the work he's been doing. He has really stepped his game up. He's playing well. He's always been unselfish, but he's the heart and soul. Can guys look at him and say, man, let's start playing not only with Walker, but let's start playing for a guy that's selling out for us every possession? Could he be a catalyst?
I think, Fred changed a lot with what he did over Christmas, right, to go through Walker. I think he wanted to feature him because I think Fred sees that in him, that he's willing to make the right play and help the team win. And I think Trey McGowan's coming back is another piece of that. I mean, I think Trey's an unselfish kid that will do a lot of little things to help you win. So I think it's by committee, Chris. I think Fred tilted some things to allow Walker to have more of a footprint on the game strategy and the outcome of these games. But, you can't beg and plead. I mean, kids got to respond with toughness and with winning plays and, getting McGowan's with 4 years of high major experience back and some toughness. Hopefully, he gets back sooner than later. But, you add him, now you have a couple, 2 to 3 guys that are playing hard, doing the little things, and you hope that carries over to help them win.
Eddie, your reaction to the contract extension that's a year and a half old that no one really looked at hard, and that's Fred's buyout at $18.5 million. The team's not been winning. It's year 3. There's questions about direction of the program. And again, I want to just reiterate, I think Fred knows basketball and is a good coach. It's just not come together for him. But there's been some eyebrows raised here the last 24 hours with the summertime extension by the Moose.
Yeah, I don't get into that. Obviously, Moose probably didn't work through the proper channels with transparency there. That's been done. You can't hold him accountable. He's already have left. But I think over the next 2 months, Trev's going to learn a lot about the men's program. I think Fred wants to win. I think he wants to be here. I think he wants to get it fixed. So over the next 2 months, we'll really find out kind of who wants to be here, because it's not fun to lose. It's easy to kind of start to drift away and go find something else to do, whether you're a player to transfer or assistant coaches or et cetera. So I think over the next 2 months, you're going to learn a lot about, does Fred have the right connectivity to this group? Does he have a plan, moving forward to get them more competitive? Because to be honest, they just have not been competitive. I think it was 6-50 against BCS schools. I mean, that's inexcusable to have that as your record. I get it. The program was in a little bit of rebuild. COVID has created some challenges. I mean, there's some built-in excuses there, but the buyout is the buyout. It's big boy business at this point. If Fred's not the right guy, you've got to move on and pay the buyout, because if you sit here for 2 or 3 years and it doesn't get fixed, the $20 million from the buyout, pales in the comparison to the revenue that you might have lost if you hire the right guy and you get the program going in 2 or 3 years, right? So I've never been spooked by big buyouts. I think Trev has to do some evaluation, and I like Fred. I think Fred comes with an unbelievable pedigree, but just has not done the things that he's needed to get done in year 3 of this program.
Eddie, let's talk women's basketball. Great effort against Iowa. Tough for the Nebraska women. They're at Indiana, number 6 Indiana tomorrow, and then the rematch with Iowa Sunday. Congrats to Alexis, National Freshman of the Week. I think you come off that Michigan win, and you're right there against Iowa. How do you think these next 2 games shape up?
Yeah, what a terrific atmosphere Sunday. I don't know, Chris, if you were there, but I thought it was awesome for 8,500 to show up to watch a women's basketball game. I think they probably left pretty impressed. I mean, it was an unbelievably high-level game, shots made, big plays. Unfortunately for Nebraska, Iowa played terrific. I mean, I had not seen them play at that level. So that was a tough loss, especially as you mentioned at Indiana on Thursday. To me, Indiana's in the driver's seat to win the league, having just beat Maryland, which was kind of the preseason favorite. Nebraska does match up to Indiana. I think Indiana's built a lot like Michigan, so I'll be, interesting to see if that allows them to be competitive and have a chance to win in a difficult environment. And then you get your rematch with Iowa next Sunday. But it's a tough league. The women I think are good, are right there to be considered as top 2, 3, 4 teams in the Big Ten, but they're just getting started. I mean, this is only fifth league game, and they got 18 of them. So Thursday will be hard, but I do think the rematch with Iowa will look a little differently. I thought they let a couple players from Iowa get some open looks that I think through scouting can be taken away the next time. And hopefully for Alexis, she can stay out of foul trouble. I thought she had a big impact in the second half of that game. Unfortunately for her, had a couple quick fouls and was kind of taken out of the game in the first half. So we'll see if the game plays out a little different out of Iowa on Sunday.
Eddie Markowski. Eddie, have a good rest of your week. Thanks for a few minutes.
All right. Thanks, Schmidt.
Good stuff from Eddie Markowski. Rick Kaczenski will hit special teams next on Hail Varsity.
Pardon the interruption, but I'd like to save you some money. I'm Brandon Vogel, managing editor of Hail Varsity, and I wanted to offer listeners of this podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce: 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Let's get caught up with Rick Kaczenski, longtime coach at Nebraska and Iowa. Kaz, what do you know? We can dive into a lot of different things, but want to start with Georgia and Bama, the title game. Thanks for jumping on, man. Quite a crazy fourth quarter.
Yeah, I didn't see much of it. I had a little work to do and fell asleep, watched it till about midway through second quarter, and woke up and saw Kirby kissing the trophy. So, but saw enough of it first quarter. Just amazing, the speed on the field, especially in the back seven. It's just absolutely amazing. I know everybody talked about those D lines, especially Georgia, but I mean, good Lord, I mean those guys, them dudes just strike you. The physicality of the game. That's the one thing that I wouldn't say shocking, but I mean it was a physical game from the first snap on, and them cats were coming downhill. But there were some dudes on the field. That's for sure.
Kaz, who's the biggest specimen like you've ever either coached or been around, or I guess a D lineman that is burned into your mind that wows you from a size and a speed combination? Because I was just, it was kind of just field goal fest for a while until that fourth quarter erupted, and the violence with the hits, how much speed and size and power was combined. It was smash mouth football, man. It was a lot of fun to watch, and I didn't mind the field goals. I thought the defenses bowed up when they needed to, and then you had a few big plays sprinkled in. But back to the original thought, is there a lineman that you're kind of put above all others when you talk or think about D linemen? I'm not saying that Bama or Georgia didn't have some great specimens or guys that can turn into all-time greats at the next level, but is there one that's broken the mold for you?
I mean, none that I coached, to be honest with you, or even played against. Most of the guys that were that big, they were lazy guys. They were front-running guys, just being honest with you. Usually those guys that are in the 330s, 340s, you don't get very, very athletic guys, and they had chinks in their armor. You just kind of wear them down. Vincent Valentine was probably the best athlete at that size that I ever had the privilege of coaching. He was freaky athlete, and when he went, he was impossible to stop. I mean, he was a 3-down guy. When you watch Georgia and Alabama, just with the depth they have on the defensive lines, that's why a guy like Davis is able to do what he's able to do. That guy couldn't. I don't know if he can play 45, 50 snaps a game. When you look at the Big Ten outside Ohio State, I mean, I can go back to being at Iowa and guys playing 70, 80 snaps a game. And I think that's a big part of that's when you're looking at the SEC, when you look at these national championships, and you look at the lack of above Mason Dixon. I mean, that's a big part of it. Defensive linemen they're gold. I mean, that's what you have, and you have a lot of them. I mean, you go down the list of Georgia, and I mean, think about it. Alabama, they didn't really even talking about their front. And, those guys would be all Big Ten players right now. I mean, you take Georgia's or Alabama's starting four, they'd walk into the Big Ten on any team and start and be first team all Big Ten guys. So, man, those dudes are gold. They're hard to find, and unfortunately, they're all for the Big Ten. Most of those guys are in the southeastern portion of the United States, or if they're not, that's where they're going to play.
Rick Kaczenski's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Kaz, going to switch gears. Nebraska hiring Bill Bush. Well, he's been on staff as an analyst now. He's a special teams coordinator. You've worked all facets of ball, and you've worked on special teams. What element of special teams is, I guess, the most difficult to coach? Is it the return game? Is it the protections? Is it field goal? Is it punt? Kickoff, kick return? You've sniffed all of them. And what's more difficult to get refined? That looks pedestrian, but when it goes wrong, obviously it can go sideways and be the difference in a ball game. What element of special teams is difficult to get right?
Well, I think the most difficult element of special teams is the culture of it. And that starts from the top. I mean, you can talk about it all you want. You can talk about it all day. I mean, you either are or you aren't. So I think the most important element of it is you can say it's important, but are you walking the walk? I think it has more to do with the head coach and how he presents special teams to the teams or to the team. I don't think it has as much to do with the special teams coordinator. Obviously, Bill Bush he's a great coach. I've always heard great things about Bill. Great recruiter, great coach. But special teams, it's no different, man. It's than coaching the defensive side of the ball or coordinating on offense. It takes all the coaches. It takes a commitment from all the coaches, and the only way you get that commitment is from the culture up top and the importance of it. When with Bo, Bo was in every special teams meeting. Coach Ferentz. I remember being being at Iowa. And being an offensive line grad assistant, and him, grabbing me saying, "Hey, come on into these special teams meetings with me. These be good." And then when I was a defensive line coach at Iowa, Same thing. I went to the special teams meetings when I was able to, even though even the ones I wasn't any part of coaching. So when it comes to schematics, anybody can learn scheme, but it also comes down to the fundamentals within the scheme. It's really not any different than any portion of the game on the offensive defensive side. But to me, the hard part, the tricky part, the tough part with special teams is the culture. Every no head coach is going to get up there and say special teams isn't important to us, right? But I think when you watch Alabama, you watch Georgia, Notre Dame, they got their best players. I mean, Notre Dame's starting tailbacks are gunner. You look at Alabama's receivers are gunners. I'm watching Notre Dame during the season, and they got starting linebackers, they got receivers running down on kick return. That's the culture. When you put your best players on there, those dudes are going to lead. That tells you about the culture. That tells you about the importance. If I'm a young guy walking on campus, and I see a Kenny Bell running down on kickoff, that's going to tell me how important special teams is to the head coach, to the program, to the university. And I mean, I go back to Iowa with Abdul Hodge and Chad Greenway. You got Chad Greenway, a first-round linebacker who had torn his ACL early. He's running down on kickoff kick. That's the culture. All right, that's that. It's not a back seat. It's just as important as offense and defense, and it takes everybody. So Bill Bush, he'll do a great job schematically. He'll do a great job teaching the fundamentals within the schematics of special teams at Nebraska. But the thing you have to get across to these players is important. You got to have guys being upset, being pissed off. How come I'm not on that? And that's what we had. Christian Ballard, first round talent at Iowa, was on special teams, was on kick return. He was in the wedge. You had guys volunteering, your best players, your leaders volunteering. If they weren't on teams, they went to the coach and wanted an explanation.
Kaz, last thought here, and thanks for giving us a few minutes. Michigan and Harbaugh, sounds like they're trying to get things ironed out. You had Black Monday to start the week in the NFL with some of the openings. What's your gut tell you about Jim? Is Coach Harbaugh wanting to kind of get made whole again with the season he had at Michigan, or do you think he might have a wandering eye? He did really well with the Niners in the NFL.
Well, I think you're always going to get a wandering eye. I mean, the way these ADs, you're talking about a guy whose salary was cut. I mean, it doesn't matter what you make. When somebody cuts you, they devalue, what you are. They devalue, what they think you could possibly be, in my opinion. So, obviously it's not about money at this point with Harbaugh. But of course he's going to have a wandering eye. He's done well in the NFL. And I think, I'm just being straightforward with you. It's really difficult. I mean, all you have to do is look at the national champions and coaches. These are things that coaches talk about when you're defining success. And I remember 2013 watching after we beat Georgia and coming home and watching the national championship game and having the conversation with my wife. Like, you hope someday you'll be at a place where you'll play in one of those games. I mean, who are the teams right now above the Mason-Dixon that are capable of doing that? I mean, if you're just being honest, so you look at those two teams, and there is absolutely zero denying that those were the two best teams in college football. Can you win a national championship at Michigan? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the stars would have to absolutely align. I mean, you look what Michigan did to Iowa in that Big Ten championship game, and then you look at what Georgia did to them. I mean, it was like playing with your nephew in the backyard. I mean, it just that wasn't a whole lot of fun. But also, too, I think it's really difficult for college coaches to not have their eyes wandering to the NFL the way recruiting is now. I mean, you have absolutely no life. And I'm not talking about just recruiting off campus, recruiting high school juniors and seniors. It's about recruiting the guys that are on campus. recruiting that 5-star kid that, came into camp out of shape and didn't play. Now, you're hearing in week 8, you're trying to get ready for Michigan State, and, Joey's not happy, and he's going to transfer back home to Texas. It's those type of things that I think is always going to keep until there's some parameters and until there's some walls built around this NIL and transfer portal. I think you're going to have every head coach that has an opportunity to jump to the NFL. They'd be an idiot not to look, because if you don't think that coaches are tired of this stuff already and we're a year and a half into it, I mean, you're crazy. It's just getting absolutely ridiculous. So when you ask that question, absolutely, I think he's looking 100%.
Rick Kaczenski with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Kaz, we'll get caught up again next week. Thanks for the inside analysis, bud. You have yourself a good week.
All right, partner. I appreciate you having me on. You too.
Good stuff from Kaz. Love the special teams thoughts and good insight there on Harbaugh. Jock Doc's on the way on Clay Thompson with Hail Varsity. Like what you hear, high-quality radio and podcast, just part of what we do at Hail Varsity. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to offer listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce, 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmitty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
Back with you, Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Time for a Jock Doc Wednesday. Lincoln Orthopedic Center, Dr. Brandon Seifert with us. Dr. Brandon, how you doing?
I'm great, buddy. How are you guys?
We're good. How's your three-point shot?
Needs a little work.
So you're not quite Splash Brother-esque is what you're telling me. Dr. Brandon, we spend a lot of time on injuries in the moment, and it's been interesting to kind of gauge and see what's going to happen with Clay Thompson from Golden State. 31-month layoff. It stretched him physically, it stretched him mentally, and he was able to make a return from an ACL and an Achilles injury to score 17 points. 941 days. What a job by Clay Thompson to come back. Let's dive into what all it took. I mean, we're talking because, it was in the NBA Finals, he had the ACL, and then it was training camp the year after where he had his Achilles. Have you ever heard of something like that happening to a guy?
No, it's pretty remarkable, especially, at that level. I can't recall anybody else outside of him that's had, Achilles, ACL, and just from the simple fact of being out of the game for that long and being able to stay motivated and rehab, then get back and obviously drop 17. I mean, that's pretty amazing. I mean, kudos to him. That's just a terrific example of working your butt off.
Game 6 of the 2019 NBA Finals. So this is pre-pandemic. This is pre-lots of stuff. Is there any association or tie, or is it just your body giving out with the wear and tear when you look at having that ACL and then you rehab from that, you get back into training camp, and then bang, you have an ACL? Could they be linked at all, or is it just freak injuries?
Yeah, you got to wonder in his situation if there's some linkage there. You take a guy that already had a tendon injury, that he probably has maybe some underlying, maybe a little bit of a collagen defect that puts his tendons more at risk for injury. We do think in some of our ACL injuries that there's probably some athletes out there that have some kind of collagen issues that lead to increased risk of ACL tears, and you could basically, incorporate Achilles tears there as well. But then you also have the other factors of, did you try to rush back? just try to go back too soon, and maybe biomechanically you weren't quite ready. Then you start putting stress in areas that are not used to that. You go in with some muscle imbalance. So that's also a possibility. You start putting more pressure on one side versus the other. So I think there's a possibility that definitely was linked.
Dr. Brandon Seifert with us, Lincoln Orthopedic Center at Jock Doc Wednesday. The return of Clay Thompson. What all entailed the rehab with the Achilles? Because that happened in 2020. I know Kevin Durant suffered that Achilles injury. I remember doing that Jock Doc with you a few years back. And one voice of experience was KD to Thompson. Don't rush back. With both injuries, what's the appropriate recovery time versus rushing it? And we know some guys are physical freaks, that they just heal quicker than others, but it's so important, isn't it, to take your time and do it right?
Yeah, absolutely. In particular, an Achilles type of injury. But and Achilles is one of those, and in terms of the recovery aspect of it, it's a pretty good reminder of how you're feeling. And so as you're going through an Achilles recovery, I mean, it's very limiting as you're going through that recovery. And in some ways, no matter how hard you push, the Achilles is kind of serves as a pretty good reminder that, about slowing down, where you're at in your recovery. On the flip side, something like an ACL recovery, you can make so even though that graft may not be quite ready, you may be feeling pretty good. You may look great kind of physically. Your muscles around the area look awesome. Your range of motion looks great. But maybe that ACL graft that's in there just hasn't quite had a chance to mature. Your body probably has a sense of kind of regaining that neuromuscular retraining, where your body kind of knows that knee is in space and how it feels. With an Achilles injury, it just is such a slower process in terms of all the things that get tight in that area. And in some ways, it does remind you a little bit more of, you kind of know more where you're at from that perspective. And so it's going to be a longer recovery. Can you put a number on it? You need a good kind of 8 to 10 months of that to feel pretty decent. Most of the time, it takes a good kind of almost year and a half to get over those Achilles injuries versus like an ACL. You probably can push that up a little bit. Maybe it's more like a year, 8 months to a year.
When we talk about Clay Thompson coming back from that 31-month rehab stint between knee and Achilles, mentally, man, you got to lean on some faith, I would think. You've got to lean on your teammates, your family, and that, to me, moving forward, is that Achilles on the right, the knee on the left. Is that something that could make him gun-shy or hesitant? Didn't look like it in game one back, but long-term, is there going to maybe be some doubt lingering in the back of his mind, some concern about either part of his body?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you add those two injuries together, and he's probably thinking about that in his mind, like, hey, maybe I do have some underlying kind of what we call tendinopathy or collagen issues here, and so that's definitely going to be there. And those are two, very traumatic kind of injuries. The Achilles in particular is one of those that really does kind of give some long-lasting kind of thoughts and feelings towards. So I think he definitely feels that. And again, that's that big kind of transition period that's always tough for all of our athletes that we fix, is redeveloping that confidence and being able to redevelop that confidence and process of injured extremity anymore as you're playing. Do you ever reach that point? I think a lot of patients and athletes get close to that point where they just kind of forget about it. That's where you want to be. Obviously, the more you're hesitant and thinking about it, actually that's kind of a higher risk of kind of retweaking it, because you start to maybe land a little bit differently or take off a little bit differently in anticipation of maybe not put as much pressure through it. And that's actually where injuries occur more frequently.
Dr. Brandon Seifert with us, Lincoln Orthopedic Center at Jock Doc Wednesday. Clay Thompson's return from ACL and Achilles season-ending injuries, 31 months away. And back, didn't shoot as much as well as he would have liked, but felt good to be back out there. What's some maintenance here, Dr. Brandon? Here, about a minute left. Moving forward here, what are some preventative things or just some health decisions Clay can do to continue to manage and stay healthy here with both those previous injuries?
Yeah, that's a great question. How do you try to go forward and maintain? Number one, the biggest thing we preach to all our athletes who go through these processes is all about biomechanics. We want to get you back to a normal level biomechanics, meaning, make sure your flexibility is appropriate. We want to make sure that your muscles are balanced appropriately. You don't want to have, stronger quads and hamstrings or some kind of imbalance between the two sides. And the other thing is we want to make sure we kind of know where, like, for example, on the knee injuries, ACL tears, we really want to know where those knees are in space. Are you taking off to jump or land and your knees are coming together? Is it moving more to the outside versus the other? And so biomechanics is huge. And so that's a process that he's going to want to continue to work on. Flexibility is always a big part of that. And then you take a guy like him who's had those injuries and you think about what type of volume should he be doing? Do you start to maybe limit some of his minutes in games? And do you start to maybe limit some of the games he's played in, the middle of that season? Or are you giving him a little bit more rest? He's probably a guy with as valuable as he is. I'm probably thinking about maybe resting him at certain times during the season in anticipation of trying to prevent some of those injuries and allowing those muscles to recover. Then, of course, he's going to need, a fantastic one, a rest phase after season, but number two, a really great kind of strengthening program in the off season that, again, focuses in on that biomechanics program. And that's really what I'd be doing if I was in his shoes.
Dr. Brandon Seifert, Lincoln Orthopedic Center, a Jock Talk Wednesday. Dr. Brandon, we'll do this again. Thanks for the time.
You bet, Chris. You guys take care.
Like what you hear? High-quality radio and podcasts are just part of what we do at Hail Varsity. I'm Brandon Vogel, managing editor, and I wanted to offer listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we do, 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, a Wednesday with Hail Varsity. Big thanks to Mike Babcock and Mike Schuhart, Eddie Markowski, our Wednesday staple. Coach Cass also joined us. Will Wilson doing some yeoman work, double dipping. Good for him. Big thanks to Will for sitting in. And tomorrow on the show, we'll have some thoughts here with Gary Barnett, Colorado and Northwestern coach. Brandon Vogel from Hail Varsity will join us. And Burke's Best Bets, Daddy Burke, may or maybe not a Rick Pizzo sighting. We're hoping for that, but Rickster's pretty busy, so we'll see if that happens or not. Some NFL thoughts also as we wind down the week with Jay Moore and some high school preview going on. Jacob Padilla and Coach Jeff Smith. Reminder about buckling up. Coaches make substitutions during the game to get the best player on the field. Getting behind the wheel after drinking also demands a substitution. Sober drivers are the only choice. The DUI costs more than you think. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. So Big Sue got paid again, hit his bonus. Another $1 million for Sue with Tampa. Levante David back at practice. So Tampa going to move forward against Philly?
Yep.
Against Philly to try and defend their title. The meanest thing I've seen on social media, not the meanest, but maybe the funniest, most mean-spirited, Chiefs fans are putting out the, it's like an invite. It's like a party invite. And it's the Ben Roethlisberger retirement party. You're all invited to Arrowhead.
Oh.
So.
It's kind of sad.
It's kind of funny.
Well, it's funny. You know what's pretty? I actually think the Steelers plus the points, not to win, but plus the points might be the biggest lock of the weekend.
What's the number at right now?
12.5.
That's a high number. What's the weather going to be like in KC?
I'm not sure. We know it's always cold this time of year, but the weather's been nice.
It's supposed to be cold here, too, right? So what do you got rocking? You slinging beers tonight? What's the deal?
I am not. I'm going to go home, hang out, eat some dinner, maybe watch some basketball. There's probably something on tonight. T-Wolves probably on. I'm still paying attention to them.
God bless you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do you have a Hoiberg jersey?
I don't.
Are you working on it?
Maybe. That might be hard to find. Do you think there's one out there I can maybe grab?
Probably.
A T-Wolves Hoiberg jersey.
I'm glad you don't have a Leitner jersey.
No, I'm not. I do have a Ricky Rubio jersey.
How about a J.R. Ryder?
No. Kevin Love, though.
Tom Gugliotta?
No.
Okay.
Rubio's about as far back as it goes.
Okay, because I remember when the T-Wolves were born.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, shut up. You're like, you're old.
Hey, I do want to get one of those throwback KG.
Oh, sure. Those are money.
I want to get one of those someday.
No, he was awesome. So, NFL on our mind, and I'm interested here with if it's just going to be your 1 seeds that get to the Super Bowl, i.e. Green Bay, do they get sweet revenge this year? Does Aaron Rodgers even want it?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he wants another Super Bowl, but
the defense.
Yeah, you know how tough it's been this year for him and that office to coexist. Rooting for Tampa. I know Dallas and San Fran will be intriguing. And then can Joey Burrow put a run together out of the AFC? Right? They just beat Kansas City.
He plays good in big games.
Oh, he does. He loves it. So that's what we're thinking about. Plenty to get into tomorrow. Have a great rest of your night. Check the podcast out. Give us a ranking. Good, bad, or ugly. Tell us what you think. Spotify, Google Play, iTunes with Hail Varsity Radio. Talk to you tomorrow at 4.
A Hurrdat Media Production.